For more than 100 years, the Haley Red Family Foundation has proudly supported Auburn University scholarships, investing in students' dreams and brighter futures. For over 25 years, we've also stood beside the Sheriff's Girls Ranch, helping young women find hope and opportunity. The Haley Red Family Foundation, building generations of success.
Welcome in again, everybody, to the Terry Bowden Show on the Auburn Undercover Podcast. I'm your co-host, Ronnie Sanders, and we're joined today by former Auburn head coach Terry Bowden and former Georgia head coach Jim Donnan. Coach, good to be with you.
Hey, always good to be with two of my old friends here. We're all in the fourth quarter except you.
Yeah, I was going to say, that throws Ronnie a little further along than he wants to be, I think, but you and I in the same boat, I think. But, Jim, it's so good to see you. I can't hardly see you when I don't think about, of course, our first kind of acquaintances back when you were the head coach at Georgia and me at Auburn. But we had two, whatever you want to call them, tough games, heck of a good football game. Looking back, fun games, but tough ones. 1996 and 97, we had two pretty good football games against each other.
Well, I can tell you one thing. We were very fortunate to win that one in 96. And then, of course, you completely just destroyed our chances to win the SEC in 97. We were patting ourselves on the back for beating Florida and everything, and had 2 weeks. And you came in there with Damian Craig, and we couldn't get off the field on defense. A brilliant game plan you had. But hey, we had some good matches over the years, and always enjoyed playing against you, and a lot of respect for you and your dad and Tommy and whole Bowden family. I'm a big Bowden fan all the way.
No, a lot of people don't remember the 90. I know the 96 team, for those of our listeners who don't remember, was the first year they had overtime in college football. And we went 4 overtimes in that game. Y'all scored on the very last play of the game. Then we lost in 4 overtimes. Those are always tough losses. But I can still remember the athletes y'all have. And two things I remember. Robert Alexander was Robert Edwards, the running back. I thought he was a defensive back earlier, but you moved him to running back, and what a great running back he was.
Yeah, I didn't really recruit Robert or Hines Ward, but fortunately for me, when I got here, we had them, and we got into that overtime, and that situation I'll never forget. They play that game back and forth on the SEC network once in a while, and right before it shows my son, who was in graduate school there, on the sideline coming up to me and talking to me. He was just a fan then. And he told me, he said, "Dad, I usually don't tell you what to do, but you're crazy if you don't give it to Robert Edwards every play in overtime." So
he did.
So we did that, and we were able – I think you were a little worn down defensively.
You're exactly right. I remember, we had Takeo Spikes at linebacker, and he was so exhausted he couldn't even, he was making almost all of our plays, but by the end of the game, he was worn out too. And we got worn down that football game, but it was a great one. And then the next year, I don't know if you remember, but we had lost a huge game to Mississippi State and got upset. And I had a week off, and y'all were outstanding. And so I don't know if you remember, but I kind of changed our offense. I put a wing back, I put a second tight end at wing, and kind of got some power going, and moved Fred Beasley to tailback. And I do remember you had Kirby Smart playing safety, because I think Kirby made a few tackles that game.
Yeah, we couldn't stop you that night. I mean, it was a high scoring game. It was a good game plan, and you look back to some of the people in that game: Kirby Smart, Mike Bobo, Will Muschamp was working with you. Also, Jimbo. You had to teach Jimbo how to coach. That's what happened.
Yeah, don't ask Jimbo that question. He'll reverse that to me. But he was awful. He was
Tommy Bowden too. So.
Yeah, and we had Tommy. We had a good Rick Trickett. You remember old Rick Trickett? We had Rick Trickett with us, and
Ronnie was just telling me that Rick might be going back to coaching up there with West Virginia. What is he, 77 years old or something?
He's 77. He went.
Yeah, he's. When I was a player at West Virginia, a lot of people don't remember. Did you know Kurt Cignetti's father, Frank, at all? Frank Cignetti.
I knew Frank because Greg Williams, played with me. I knew Frank through him, and I knew all those West Virginia people. Once we got up there to Marshall, I met a lot more of them.
Yeah, Rick Trickett was actually a defensive line coach when I played and Tommy played. For Frank was the head coach. He was my dad's offensive coordinator. Kurt Sigday was about 5 years behind us. Rick Trickett was a defensive line coach when I became a GA and Tommy. Nick Saban was the secondary coach. I think Greg Williams had left after my dad left, maybe a year after Frank's first or second year. But Greg Williams, what a great coach he was too. And then, Rick Trickett was on that staff, and it was funny. But you also went to Marshall. I think a lot of people. You won a national championship, and of course, you're in the Hall of Fame. The College Football Hall of Fame won the national championship at Marshall. But I was thinking, how many years after the plane crash was where did you go in there? About 10 or 11 years after that?
It happened in 71, and so I got the job in 90. But
in 90, it was about 19 years.
But that town just really was so happy to finally start winning that we had a lot of support and built a new stadium and were able to get some good players in there. We left them some good guys too. They didn't lose a game for 2 years after we left. We left Randy Moss and Chad Pennington and Pruitt did
Leftwich, the quarterback Leftwich. Was it Leftwich?
Yeah, Leftwich came after me, but he was good.
Yeah.
We had a good run up there. But also remember Rich Rod was coaching up there when I was at Marshall. He used to come down to our clinics, and he had a lot of good information even then as a young coach. And I've kept up with him over the years, and I think he'll get it going again up there at West Virginia. And of course, Nick, when I was coaching at NC State, Nick was playing defensive back for Kent State. And the first game I ever coached as an offensive coach, he was playing defensive back for Kent State there at NC State.
Well, Nick played at Monongah High School in West Virginia, and my dad was the offensive coordinator at West Virginia in the late 60s, and he recruited Nick, but Nick was a little bit short, as you know, and so he really was recruiting a couple of running backs on that team and signed them. And but Don James, who was the head coach at Kent, you remember Don James, he was an assistant coach at Florida State with my dad. And, of course, you coached at Florida State maybe a little bit after that. My dad was there, and Don James was there in the early 60s. And then Nick played for Don. Then Don James left to go to Kent State. My dad left to go to West Virginia. But I thought of this when I thought of West Virginia. Do you remember Red Dawson? Remember Red Dawson that was at the only guy that survived the plane crash?
Yeah, his brother Rhett played for me at Florida State, and
that's right.
So when I got to Marshall, Red was, like you mentioned, was the only guy that wasn't on the plane. He went for a recruiting trip, and it was such a hard thing for him to go back and watch games and all. But I reached out to him and said, "Look, I know how hard it is and everything, but I'd like for you to come to practice and get involved. I know your brother." And we started developing a relationship, and he gradually got back where he could go to the games. But it's got to be traumatic thinking about all those guys, people dying and everything. But he was a big part in helping us up there. He was in construction. He actually helped us build a practice field up there.
Yeah.
He was great.
Yeah, I remember Red up there. In fact, I interviewed for that job. I was too young. The year George Chomp got the job, I want to say that was 85 maybe, but I interviewed for it. It was too young. He didn't get it. And then George Chomp did a great job too when he was there, I think 85 or 86. But a lot of people don't realize, the movie We Are Marshall, and I had forgotten you coached Rhett, because my dad was the receiver coach at Florida State, 63, 4, and 5, and he coached Red Dawson and Fred Blitnikoff at that. Those were his two wide receivers, or tight end wide receivers back in those days, and that was kind of my dad's connection to Marshall. Red was on the coaching staff when my dad went to what became the head coach at West Virginia. Did
your dad, was he coaching at Florida State in 67?
No, he was there 63, 4, and 5, and then he went to he played for. I don't know if you remember Jim Carlin. He went to be the offensive coordinator for Jim Carlin at West Virginia in 66, and became the head coach in 70.
Yeah, we played Florida State down there in 67 when I But anyhow, there's a lot of reminiscing here. But I know Ronnie's chomping at the bit to bust me about something here. So what you got going on there, Ronnie?
Let's get your take on the playoff, if that's okay.
Playoff.
I'm just telling you right now, I can't believe how good these games are going to be, and I know Terry's fired up about it. But you got 4 really good, interesting matchups, and certainly how these teams have evolved over the year has been pretty impressive. And with both myself and Terry's background in 1AA, where you had to play so many games to get into play, and then you're in the playoffs and play 4 other games. The health and conditioning and the strength of your team at this part of the year is so vital to be fresh and be able to have some injured players maybe get back and not have injured guys. And then you're going to have some quick turnarounds, like as soon as you play this week, then you're playing next week. And then it's pretty quick, 3 big physical games to win it all. But we got some good matchups. So anything you want to ask about it, I'll try to help you with.
What do you think
go ahead, Ronnie.
Oregon and Texas Tech. I mean, Texas Tech's front 7 is about as impressive as anybody in the country.
Yeah, I mean, they made a move there financially to get a good front there, and they've done a good job. And, I've been by myself now, and my wife passed away 4 years ago, so I get a chance to watch a little more ball than I normally would outside of Georgia. But, I've looked at Tech, and I think they really have an excellent defense, and their offense doesn't show me quite as much as maybe some of these other teams. And I think that's going to be their problem against a team with the speed that Oregon has. Is I don't know if they can match the point productivity that maybe Oregon, or they've played the schedule that Oregon has, even though I don't think the Big Ten's that great. But, with the exception of BYU and Utah, I don't know who really Texas Tech has played. But I got to go with I know you got some ties out there, but I'm really high on Dan Lanning. He was here, did a terrific job for Kirby, and is an outstanding young coach. Terry would be really impressed with him. I mean, he's a lot like you and your dad, and all very involved with the players, and just a very smart guy that gets it. I think he's a rising star that's going to be, there for a long time.
Yeah, this game again was I think it was a 1.5 point spot. I think it's now at a 2.5 point spot in favor of I think it's in favor of Texas Tech right now. As far as that's a toss-up kind of game. I really think these are really 2 teams that I say if you had to pick 2 teams out of that bunch that people probably don't think are going to win the championship, but they have enough talent. If they put it all together and play just right, I think these 2 teams, especially since we in the Southeast, we probably don't respect the West Coast well enough. We don't watch the Big 12 that much, but I do think these 2 teams, especially the talent that they were able to get with the NIL at Texas Tech, and then the amazing, Lanning, he's kind of like Georgia. They play great defense and they run the football. They want to run it, and people think of them as being a wide open Oregon type of flamboyant, but they can run that football, and it should be a heck of a football game in those 2. But I'm gonna go with Tech. It's funny because I work, Jim. I do a ton of podcasts every day, and I work for a company out of New York. And nobody wants to know who's going to win. They want to know who's going to beat the spread. And nobody. I mean, I never get. You and I are coaches. We couldn't gamble when we coach, But everybody now's got a phone in their hand, and they're putting $10 on this game, or
right.
It's legal.
Too easy to bet. But I remember when I was coaching at OU, and Coach Switzer at 9:00 on Sunday night, the line would come out of Vegas, and at 9:01, he would call me and he would say, "These guys must be better than I think they are." Of course, he didn't look, or hey, we should be all right. He based it on that, but of course he would watch the tape and all. But it was always kind of funny. I knew I was going to get that call. Hey, these guys must be pretty good. But I tell you, as far as those bets and everything, I told my guys out at the club, I thought the best bet in the history of the world would be BYU against Georgia Tech. I thought that that was like 3.5, and I said, hey, they're going to kill Tech. And, of course, they fumbled inside the 10, and they didn't make it one time, but they made a miracle 2-point play and then scored and won by 4. And I said, well, we had it all the way, but that shows you.
Well, I'm the same as you. You and I. And the funny thing was, I said, I believe BYU's going to pull this game out and win the football game. I said, there's one way Georgia Tech's going to win, and that's if on the last drive Haynes King has the ball, because nobody finishes better than Haynes King. And who in the heck threw an interception on the last drive? He did take him down, but he did not.
He had that one guy in the end zone, just threw it a little high, but
that's right.
He had a remarkable career, and just one of the guys that coached him who left there, Buster Faulkner, I've recruited him in high school, and he's done a good job. And now he's going to Florida, but Tech, of course, we feel about Tech like some of the Auburn fans feel about Bama, but they're 1-4 in their last 5 games. They're trending the other way, which is always makes me feel good to see Tech do that. But
who's your next game, Ronnie? Who's your next one, buddy? We're kind of going both ways on Oregon. I'm going to take Oregon with, I think, whether it was 1.5, it may be 2.5 right now. But
I'm going with
Oregon, and you're going with Oregon. I'm going to go with Texas Tech, but it's kind of a toss up.
All right, we'll see how we do on these.
All right.
I'm going to take the Ducks.
You take the Ducks. I'll take Texas Tech.
What about Miami at Ohio State?
Well, when you look at Miami, I mean, their squad has certainly got a lot of athletes, and they really perplexing team. They look like they really can't be beaten, and sometimes they beat themselves, and sometimes they make some really unbelievable coaching decisions. I know people would say the same thing about me, but it looked like they put some of their players in the witness protection program during the game. Sometimes they just don't use them. And Beck has been a good quarterback for Georgia, but he plays a lot better when they're in the lead. I just think Ohio State, another team that hadn't been tested much, and when they were with all those fronts that Indiana made against them, it really kind of confused their running game. But Miami can play with them, but I just think there's so many big play potential with Ohio State. I got to go with the Buckeyes.
I don't think I'm ready to go against the Buckeyes on this one. I guess if we're talking money line or straight up, I think is that without a doubt. But I look at that 9.5, and I'm saying that's way too much for me. I can't. I think Miami will play well enough to stay within 9.5. So again, but if it was straight up, I was betting straight up, I definitely would take Ohio State. But the spread right now 9.5, and I'm thinking
I'll take Miami too. I just thought we were picking the game, but
I am. I'm just no, and I am. I mean, you get the money whether we pick the money line or pick the spread, but if I was on my other show, I would say I'm taking 9.5, but Ohio State will win. But Miami does have, to me, the talent, the speed that Ohio State doesn't face every week, and it's funny you said they make bonehead mistakes, because they do. In the last 2 years, they've made some decisions that have cost them ball games. And I try not to be critical of games, but they pay me to tell the truth when it comes to the games. And I just think they had 2 roughing the passer in the last drive of the game. In the last 2 games, they've had 2 roughing the passer calls when it was like the worst thing you could do is even come close to roughing the passer. And both of them were close, but fairly legitimate. But I think they have the speed, but I think when Ohio State quarterback, as good as he's done, I think he leads the nation in completion percentage, but he kind of he was struggling a little bit against Ohio State against Indiana, because they played so well. He struggled a little bit there. So anyway, I think Ohio State, I'm with you. I think Ohio State wins the game, but if I was a betting man, I would take the 9.5, as you said you would.
They're going to have to protect the guy. I mean, those guys come off the edge and all, but I don't see Ohio State being a team that can really pound you running the ball either. Like you got to run right at Miami. I don't know if they can do that, but they got such explosive receivers on the edge. And talking about Miami too, they got that turnover at the end of the half against Texas A&M. And it looked like they were trying to run the clock out instead of trying to some of those plays. They must have drawn them up in fantasy football, but it was very poor, very poor. And then Texas A&M, I was going to ask you your opinion, because you always crafted some really good game plans. It was ridiculous that they didn't move their quarterback and sprint him out, and they just set him in the pocket the whole game at Marcel Reed.
Yeah.
If they'd have moved him around, I think they could have won that game.
Well, they definitely could. They gave up 7 sacks, and he's a dual threat. He can run very smooth, And I want to say he beat Notre Dame throwing on the run several times.
Right.
He threw the final touchdown pass rolling out to his left and throwing the ball on the run. I felt the exact same way with that. But you know what? You mentioned the last of the game. I don't know if you agree with this, but ever since everybody has gone to no huddle and fast break, and it's not like it's been around for a long time, I don't think anybody knows how to run a 2-minute offense. I don't think anybody in the country, it's not the same thing. You can't throw short of a first. You know what? There's a whole 1-minute offense, whether you want to call it a 2-minute offense or a 1-minute offense. It's a whole different deal because now every pass has got to go for a first down or an out of bounds,
Right.
or you don't complete it. You don't throw underneath them, and everybody I watch just lines up just like they're still running their no huddle offense and wasting time and moving formations around. I said, what are y'all doing? You're wasting your time on the wrong side of the 50. Waste your time.
Right.
I mean, save your time for the other side of the 50. But I don't think people can. I had the same problem late in my career when I started turning offense over to other people. I said, what, you got your 2-minute offense ready? Well, we just run our fast break. I said, it ain't the same.
You can't do that. And you watch Georgia Tech at the end of the game. They wasted an important amount of time. But I think that the main thing with so many of these teams nowadays with these RPOs and all the different functions that you have with the fast break stuff is there's got to be a time in the game where you're just going to call a play and not try to outsmart everybody. Just call the play and run it and don't worry about what the defense is in and execute because, you know, you can't always have all the numbers on your side or everything lined up perfect. But if you got the good athletes, just go to the guy and make the first down. But we could talk all day about philosophy here.
Well, you know, but it's I enjoy it because you coached over several different decades, and I did too. And a lot of the fast break, hurry up. One of my things my dad loved to do is he liked matchups. He says, I'm going to find a way to get that ball to my best guy, and I want to call a play, and the quarterback's got to know when I call it that that's the guy I want to throw it to. And when you start playing fast break, no huddle, and all that stuff, I swear you don't know where the quarterback's going to throw it. You're not even sure he's on the same page as you are because it changes so much. But anyway, it's probably a discussion for another day.
Yeah.
Let's hit your Dogs. How are they going to do against Ole Miss?
One thing about our team, Ronnie and Terry, is that our team has made some significant improvement over the year. You know, we've had such good talent the last few years and you look at the NFL draft, which is indicative of that we've and they coach them up and everything, but we don't have near the amount of stars that we've had. And part of that is the NIL and the guys leaving, not so much for money, but just playing time. We got 9 guys starting around the country on defense that could be backups or be playing for us that would really help our depth. And we made some issues here with our guys, and we let some guys go that to other schools at safety and brought some guys in that didn't pan out. So our secondary has not been what's the typical Kirby Smart type secondary early in the year. But now that he's gotten some younger guys and developed them, our defense is starting to be the kind of defense that you expect, that Terry would expect, or that Georgia has that we didn't show. And then our quarterback has really developed, but not only has he, but we've had so many different combinations of offensive linemen all year. Guys hurt, guys back and forth. But now it kind of putting it all together, plus 2 weeks of rest. And I would say, based on that Bama game, Georgia's peaking at the right time of year. And as Terry said, we can run the ball when everybody else knows you're going to try to run it. And that really sets up a lot of things for our quarterback. And the one thing that our quarterback's doing now, which Kirby's letting him do when he's not so worried about the rest of the year, we're running more quarterback-centric runs. He ran the ball 14 times against Alabama the other day. So that gives you first downs, keeps the clock, keeps the chains moving, and makes the defense be leery of him. So I like Georgia even though it's Ole Miss is a good team. We've already beaten them once, and it was a close game, but I think we're really trending the right direction.
I'm all with you. And for those of you listeners, so many of our listeners, there is a 6.5 point spot on this game, but I've got Georgia to cover and Georgia to win. And I agree with you. Georgia has just gotten better and better. And I think as you look at the coaches that are in the playoffs, Kirby has the most experience in postseason play, in playoff play. I think he understands, how not to wear your kids out, how to have them ready, and they've gotten better and better and better. I was an offensive coach, Tommy, my dad. We were all offensive guys, and we depended on having a great defensive coordinator. I had Wayne Hall, then I had Brother Oliver at Auburn, but I think Kirby Smart has that defensive mentality. Great defense, run the football, and then and a solid quarterback that runs your system. Like Stetson. What was the quarterback's name that won 2 championships? Yeah, he was just a great leader, a great manager of the football team.
Yeah,
and I think
he could really throw a lot better than people thought. The other thing, as an old coach, that I stressed, that I know you did, is our kicking game is the best in the 50 plus years that I've ever been around. We got the best kicker and punter combination that I've ever been at. I've seen better punters and better kickers, but these two guys are deadly. I mean, just really consistent and turn the field around. And, if you can have a good kicking game, that can make up for some things when things aren't going great. And fortunately for us, we've won some tight games. Very fortunate to win the Auburn game, very fortunate to win Tennessee game there in overtime, and some close ball games. But our team knows how to play in the clutch, and I feel like we got a good shot at winning this one.
Well, they say I've got my dogs running around behind me. I've got to shut him down. But, hey, it's interesting you mentioned that, because people wondered why Oklahoma lost to Alabama. Oklahoma has the the SEC punter, all-conference punter. He drops a snap. And then their Lou Groza Award field goal kicker missed a 36-yarder and then a 50-yarder. And he had made, I think, 8 field goals over 50. So, again, it was I want to ask you two a question.
Yeah. As long as both of you have been watching football, of course, I'm a big OU fan. All my kids are out there. They were there when I coached at OU, and everybody's at the game but me. Have you ever seen a guy drop the ball and not hit his foot like that?
No. I was going to say, and he's your first team all-conference punter. You almost had to shoot yourself as a coach because you got the right people recruited. Yeah,
that's just one of the worst I've ever seen.
Before we go, I want to run a couple of let's hit Alabama and Indiana, and then I also would like to get your thoughts on Muschamp getting back in.
Yeah, as far as Alabama, I give them a lot of credit because they were lower than Wellman. You were there at 17-0 down, and they did everything they needed to do to turn that game around, and they got some help from OU for sure. With the pick six, but they, Simpson doesn't have any running game to help him, and I think they're going to be in trouble against this Indiana front. One of the things that you watch studying them is how much they twist and move around, and that causes a lot of trouble with this Bama. But at the same time, if Bama can hit some runs where they hit those gaps where they're twisting, they might make some easy runs that you normally don't get just because Indiana taking themselves out of it. So I think it's either going to be Bama's going to get nothing in the running game or they're going to get more than you think. And then, of course, Simpson has been clutch. He's done everything. And Mendoza, we tried hard to get him here. I was standing on the sideline with him a year ago, and he heard all that stuff about Stockton with the background here. But he's a very – and he's in Auburn saw him last year over there, very accurate, strong passer. But he really hasn't made a lot of stats against the great teams. Most of it's been, against the others. But he came through in the clutch against Ohio State and Penn State. But I think Bama's got a better shot than most people think. But in the end, Indiana's defensive front's pretty dang good.
Yeah, I think that's the difference. I'm with you. I think Alabama, their quarterback really is very talented. They put too much pressure. Their running game is not very good. Y'all held them to -3. They got about 28 or 30 yards. Even when they beat Oklahoma, they couldn't run the football, maybe 58 yards. It's not the way they won championships. And so, you know how when you can't run the ball, it's not like you have to, but it takes so much pressure off the quarterback. And so I think everything now it's going to determine is how well Ty Simpson can play. we know that. I mean, and then Indiana is top 10 in their rush defense, so they're no slouch on defense either, as well as in their quarter. Anytime you got a running game, that helps your quarterback, not have to go out there in passing situations. So I have said even during the season, if Alabama doesn't get a little more running game when they get to the good teams in the playoffs, it's going to put too much pressure on the quarterback, and he's going to have to win it every time. And Alabama's got some good receivers, but I think that puts a little too much pressure on them. And I'm like, I got Indiana on that one as well.
Well, what happens with Alabama? They got to manufacture these runs with wide receiver jets,
right,
and throw screens and all that. But as far as Will Muschamp, of course, he started out here in Georgia and then he worked for you, but just a real football coach and a good man. I got to know him a lot when he was here the second time around, helping Kirby out. And He was good to have a guy that second voice. And I thought he was just kind of going out on the prairie there, the last 2 years watch his son play up at Vanderbilt, and it looked like, he was just coming around here and talking once in a while and helping them out. But as you know, Terry, you coached for so long, and then you were out doing a great job in broadcasting. But that football is in your blood, and you got that chance to go back and did a great job at Akron, and they didn't give you enough time, I thought, at Monroe. But the point is, if I could coach the team tomorrow, I would do it, even if I had to go in a wheelchair. I mean, it's in your blood, and I think that's the way it is with Will. And certainly Texas has got everything you need, that's for sure. And for them to fire that guy who's done a pretty dang good job, I thought, for Texas, they got to think they're bringing Will in there. And what he brings in to me is he knows the Saban footprint. He knows it's kind of like back in the old days, war-wise, some of these tribes would get some of the Indians from the other tribe and try to get them on their side. He knows what Kirby's doing here. He knows the blueprint we got, and he'll do a great job for him. I mean, he's a tremendous football coach, and he's a great motivator, and really was close to winning it all his second year at Florida, as Ronnie knows. I mean, they don't get that some of those guys hurt and all. I mean, I thought they were going to win it all, and if Lane Kiffin would have won that game against Notre Dame, they would have been playing for the national championship.
Yeah. Now, did you have when Will played for? Was his defensive coordinator Joe? Who was the coordinator for you at defense when he played?
Well, when I got here, they had already hired Glenn Mason, so they kept Joe Kine. So I kept Joe, and he did a good job for us. But Mickey Matthews was.
Mickey.
And then Gary Gibbs came in after Joe left, but Joe went down with your dad. But Will never actually coached here. Kirby coached the first year after he got out, and he was kind of a part-time guy here. But Will, everybody out there, Auburn people don't like Kirby and all that, but I'm just telling you, the guy's a coach's coach. I've never been around the guy in the history of my lifetime that knows every position like he does. He could coach every position as an individual coach. His dad was a high school coach.
Sure.
He knows all the quarterback reads. He knows all the stuff on special teams. He knows all the offensive line calls. I mean, he's just a very thorough guy, and he's relentless. I mean, everybody in the building's on point all the time, and he's always changing with the times, and that's what you got to do. I mean, It's a different world out there.
Yeah, but Will Muschamp, when I brought him in, I would like to say I had a great influence on him, but he came in when I brought Brother Oliver in from Alabama, and I want to say Brother had about 6 national championships, 2 as a player, maybe 3 at Alabama as a coach, and 1 with Clemson when he was there at Clemson. But I think that had the big impact on Will then, and of course Alabama with the Nick Saban and that experience he had with him. But I agree with you. If I think at Texas, they know if they are down the road, they're going to get to where they want to be. They've got to know as much as they can about Georgia, as much as they can about Alabama, and they've got to have a guy that's intense and knows how to coach defense. And Will fits he checks all those boxes. That's for sure. Did we get? We got all the playoff games, didn't we?
We did.
All right, let me get one more question with you before we let you go. We've got so much has changed in the last 3 years because I think since you and I started coaching, and you were even before me, there's been a lot of changes in football. But I don't think anything in the last 3 years where you've got NIL and you got portal transfer and you wonder where this is going. Bowls don't seem to matter as much as they used to, and a lot of teams are in playoffs now. And where's football? Are you still feel good about where college football is going? Does some of this stuff bother you, or it's just different?
I just get back to when I was growing up and they were talking about, hey, when I used to go to school, we had to walk 5 miles in the snow and all that. Hey, there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, the changes are the changes, and your ability to adapt to it, and your administration being the support cast that they need to be and working with you, because they're when you've got Congress looking at it and the NCAA's not and all that stuff, you just got to roll with the punches and have the kind of people that can adjust. And that's why I think down the road you're going to probably see 40 big schools, the haves and the have-nots, because I don't know how these other schools are going to be able to. You get a good player in a non-big school, and then they find out about him, and everybody else comes after him the next year. I mean, back in the days when you were at Sanford and I was at Marshall, we had good players. They'd be going somewhere else next year because everybody's picking on them. And I think one thing I'll project here, January is going to be the most wild, wild west I've ever seen on this portal, because you're going to see 25, 30 people leaving just so they can play every place else and get more money. And these rosters are going to constantly be evolving every year, where you think you got these guys coming back, but they leave and go other places. So every year, everybody's going to, just like the new coaches in the SEC, their rosters, they're going to be so different between now and the spring. But the one thing I like better than anything is just a one-time transfer. At least you can't do it twice, have
right.
2 portals in 1 year. So in the spring what your team's going to look like at least.
And I gotta wonder where the bowls are going to fit in. It seems I've enjoyed the bowls, to be honest with you. There was some interesting matchups. I don't know if you can predict a winner very good with the roster changing so much or coaching staff changing so much. But when I watched the Georgia Tech and Baylor, and I watched Clemson or Penn State, which was kind of a sloppy game, but I watched some of those games, even LSU and Houston, they were fun to watch. So I don't know where bowls are going with the playoffs, but hopefully there'll be a place. Bowls have been so important to college football. Right. I hope there's a place for them besides just the playoffs.
Yeah, the one thing I always said about bowls, and we both went to a lot of them, and Ronnie has too, is there's a lot of benefit for these kids to play one more time together, to know that, hey, we played and we worked ourselves to get, but also the going into these communities, and this is not being hokey, but being around the boys and girls clubs or going to these hospitals or whatever it might be, gives the kids a chance to really see what life's all about outside their own school and all, and meet people. I met some people at bowl games before that helped me down further down the career, and I'm sure both of you have. But the interaction with other people and your team and all, people that gripe about bowls, they really don't understand. It's certainly a reward for your seniors, but it's also very educational for your team to get out there. And the thing that really chaps my ass, though, is these people that opt out. You go quit on your team, and I think you're either going to be on the team or you're not. So finish it out and play with your team. And we learned a valuable lesson the first year when the opt-outs, we played Texas and we had some guys opt out and we let them go to the game and all, and they took away. But the next time we played, Kirby said, you either in or you're out. You're either going to be with our team. And the same thing's true when we played Florida State, when we didn't get to play in the championship game. We told those guys, look, you're either going to play in the game or you're not. And our guys, we can sit around and mope about it. And I will give a little credit to that coach at Vanderbilt. He wasn't griping about the fact that they didn't make it. He said, look, we had a chance to do it, and we didn't do it. And I admire the fact that he said that.
Yeah, and I think and you never know how it's going to affect the team. I watched Pitt play East Carolina, and everybody would have thought, East Carolina lost their coordinators, they lost their quarterback. But when I saw the first series and Pitt got sacked twice, then 5 turnovers, then 2 4th and shorts, they don't get it. I said, one team wasn't ready to play. I know that much, and the other one was.
Looked like Pitt didn't practice for sure.
No, that's one of those things. Well, listen, Jim, so good to talk to you, and so thankful that you could be on the show with us. And we just look forward to it. Maybe we can do it again.
Yeah, look forward to it in the future. And just want to say to all the Auburn fans and to how fortunate they are to have had you as the coach, and also to have this podcast for you to talk ball and get around. I do a little bit that with Georgia, and of course Ronnie over the years has just been a really true friend and really backed me and was very, very good when my wife was very sick. So fortunate to have you as a friend, Ronnie.
I feel the same way, Coach. It's been I can't believe we've known each other this long, but I guess time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, you got those kids now. You're gonna have to get behind your house and pick up some of those cans you've been putting all that money in and start paying for them to go to college.
I think my wife's already spent it all.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for having me.
Take care, Jim. Successful coach. I know our both of our careers go back. Now he's about 10 years older than I am, I think. I'm 69. He's 79 or so. But he National Coach of the Year, national champion at Marshall, SEC Coach of the Year 1997, College Football Hall of Fame. I want to say he's 100 and something and 40. He's got his overall record very good, and he's been a part of a lot of Power 4 schools he's coached at over the years in his coaching. And of course, we had a couple of really incredible football games to watch. It was a very tough loss for me in 1996 to him at Georgia when Damian and Hines Ward at quarterback and Robert Edwards at running back and a lot of other people. We had Damian Craig at quarterback and Takeo Spikes at linebacker, but those were we knocked them out of the SEC championship, and then the next year, they knocked us out of a chance, and the next year we beat them and knocked them out of a chance to play for the championship. But everybody thinks of the Auburn-Alabama game, and that is the toughest. That is the one. But a close second is Auburn-Georgia in our game with Georgia.
There's no doubt. And we mentioned one former Georgia player, and we talked about him a little bit ago. And I sent Muschamp a text last week. I said, you need to be coaching. And there's one guy I know that does not need to be doing TV or anything else. It needs to be coaching the rest of his life. It's Will Muschamp.
Well, and of course I've gotten to know because my wife's son was kind of mentored under Will at LSU, and then followed him to South Carolina and followed him to Georgia, and now I think Will Myers was just selected as it's like a assistant coach of the year or staff of the year. He won one of those awards they give to the outstanding assistant or administrative assistant of the year. He's the player personnel director for the job he does at Georgia. But I think Jim Donnan probably said it right. You better be ready to work. If you're going to go work for Kirby Smart, you better be willing to go work because you're up pretty early and you're there pretty late. And you dot every I and you cross every T. And that's kind of what I think successful coaches understand is that. And I've been with Dabo and I've watched him. I've watched Nick Saban as a graduate assistant. Of course, my father for years, and so many coaches and the techniques and the ability. And the most important thing I think that you see from the coaches that are very successful is that they're there earlier and they're there late. They work hard and they understand we don't all have the right answer. But hard work will usually get you through until you figure out the right answer. We don't always have the perfect offense, the perfect defense, but we're going to outwork people, so it'll get us through until we figure that part out.
Well, people don't realize how that the hours that coaches put in. They're like, well, I want to do that for a living because you get the fame and the money and all those things, and then you get in there and it's like, wait a minute now. I mean, I remember working at LSU and we had a staff meeting at 7:00, and nobody left the building until the building we were in then, you could look out the window and
right.
Coach Saban parked right there and you could see his taillights come on when he backed up. And so as soon as he would leave, he'd walk by the offensive staff room and he'd get to the bottom of the stairs. And as soon as his brake lights would come on, Derek Dooley came down the hall screaming jailbreak. So we all knew it was time we could go home.
Yeah, you don't want to get have the head coach there longer than you are. That's for sure. If you're an assistant, but that it's a labor of love, yes. And now I will say this: most coaches, they couldn't make nearly what they make in any other profession than what they're now being paid. But you do put in your hours. How many times have I heard people say, "Well, what do you do in the off season?" And I didn't want to say, "Well, what off season?" There is no off season. I think Rick Trickett once said that at Nick Saban with Nick 1 year, or maybe Pete Jenkins said it. I think we worked 51 out of 52 weekends in a particular year. And
I remember Jimbo calling me. It was the year after, and I had already left. It was the year after they won the national championship at LSU, and he said, I think you're right. I mean, he said something about, he's outside of the 3 weeks we had in the summer.
Yeah.
He said, I think he said they worked every weekend except one. And he said, Nick's in here cussing us out. He said, we did win the national championship last year. And
set the bar a little high. You set the bar a little bit high. Well, that's the thing about Georgia. I mean, Jim was talking. It's so good to see Jim involved at Georgia because he was very successful. And when they let him go, he had won 9 or 8 or 9 games he never won less than 8 or 9.
Mark Rick,
and that's what happens when you're there. You get you create a level of expectation that's so high that that's what's amazing that at Auburn that they've suffered through 5 losing seasons. It's just hard for me to picture that, but especially. And I will say this as a compliment to all of our Auburn fans is what an amazing game atmosphere that is. I said, wait till it's 10-8-0 or 10-0 when you're playing at 11-0 when you're playing Alabama, or wait till it's because y'all have been there through the thick and thin.
I keep telling my kids, Auburn's not going to be terrible forever. We moved back to Birmingham 5 years ago.
Yeah,
and Auburn's had 5 straight losing seasons, and my little one, we've been to 3 Iron Bowls in Jordan-Hare now, and they've all 3. One was 4 overtimes.
Yeah,
one was 4th and 31, and the other one was last year. So it's been a. She said she thinks, well, I'm never gonna see him win. I'm like, honey, it's coming. Just give it some time.
Yeah, and everything I see about our new coach, Alice Golish, and the staff that he's brought in and retained. Everything I see, he seems like he's making, because I'm always watching how they staff, decisions they make, press conferences they have. Because there's one thing about being the head coach at Auburn or anywhere like Auburn, there's very little time to learn on the job. Mm-hmm. If you don't make a great decision with your staff, and I have made a couple of decisions where I had to make a change. I have very seldom ever had to make a change, but I have made some. But if you know what you're doing, and when they hire you at Auburn, they do hire you expecting you to know exactly what you're doing. When I see a coach hire 8 guys or 9 guys and he fires 3 after 1 year, I'm thinking, what were you thinking? Those aren't somebody else's problem unless they talked you into keeping somebody, and sometimes there's probably some dynamic like that there's that kind of transition. But you need to know what you're doing day one. And I like the staff that he's put together. I like the thinking that he's got. I like the comments that he's made in his press conference. He's obviously a guy that comes from a background of work ethic and building your own career, building your own life. He comes out of Russia, his family continually trying to build a better life. And I think that's something he thought of. He wasn't blue blood. He played at. He went to Toledo or wherever he was with when he went after college. I forget where he said he went to college and played ball.
He went to Ohio State. I'm not sure where he was after that, but
no. But he started out in. I don't know where he went to play foot. He didn't play football at Ohio State. I didn't think he played at Ohio State. But he might have.
Ohio State.
But he got a grad. But anyway, the fact is he worked his way up through the ranks. And I think I saw the article today. They were talking about his offensive coordinator, maybe, I think, and how he's at USF 1 minute, and the next minute he's at Auburn. But what's the quarterback coach's name? The offensive coordinator? I forget the name of that, and I don't know all their names yet.
He's a young guy.
But I like the fact that he was a quarterback at Shepherd. I don't know if anybody knows what Shepherd. In fact, I saw on the Auburn Network the article called it Shepherdstown College. It's Shepherd College in Shepherdstown, West Virginia. I know that because when I started coaching at Salem College, that was our big rival. That was the best team in the conference, and you had to beat Shepherd if you were going to go anywhere. And that your quarterback coach went to Shepherd, was all conference at Shepherd, and is on their
Division III. Joel Gordon.
Well, yeah, and back then we were NAIA. We were scholarship, but we were NAIA. I thought they were Division II now, but they could be Division III now, like you said, because I know he said he coached at Emory and Henry. I coached against a lot of those schools because I started out at Salem College, which was in the same conference as Shepherd. And you still learn a lot of football when you're playing at that level too. And so it looks like he's got most of his staff lined up. And
you also learn a lot at that. You know, people don't realize. I mean, you learn a lot when you're at those places. I remember when I walked in at Southern Miss, and they said, "Well, you're going to be the recruiting coordinator, and you're going to run camps." And I said, "Okay, well, what have you done in the past?" And I started looking around. I'm like, so basically, this is on me, right?
And you do. Yeah, I mean, you do. That's a great point. You do. I mean, Jim Donnan was talking about. I think he was talking about Will Muschamp. We say he knows every position. He knows every assignment. And I can't remember if he was talking about Kirby or talking about Jim. But the fact is, back then, I mean, when I was the head coach at Salem College, I had to know. I knew every assignment of every position on the offense, every step they took, every technique they had of every position, because I could only afford student assistants and maybe a graduate assistant and no real money to give anybody. And so I had to make sure I knew every assignment of every position. And that's kind of when I got to Auburn, I had been running that offense for 10 years, knowing every position. So when I got into an argument with Rick Trickett or Jimbo or Tommy, at least I said, no, this is the way we're going to run it. And I would always come back the next day and say, okay, you're right. You can run it. Tommy, I'd get in an argument when we'd have a staff meeting on offense and I'd get in an argument with Tommy. And Tommy said, well, you're going to do what you're going to do. I don't know why we're arguing. You're going to run what you want to run, so forget it. And I said, yeah, that's right. And then the next day I'd come and I said, let's change it to what Tommy wanted to do or Jimbo wanted to do. Or Trick.
I was talking to Tommy after Auburn recognized the 93 team as national champion, and he said, well, I'm officially the worst coach in my family. And I said, well, you got Jack and Jeff. He said, well, thanks for that vote of confidence.
Well, it's funny. Tommy had always said, make that it's Tommy and I would take turns saying second best in our family. None of us ever even pretended to be first best in our family. It was either second or third. And I remember after the 93 season, and I can't ever forget it. Of course, we had the National Coach of the Year banquet, and it was the Bear Bryant National Coach of the Year banquet in Houston. And I was there. I was nominated. My dad was nominated. Bill Snyder was nominated, and one other. I can't remember who the other one was. And so I got up and talked. You know, they didn't announce it till after everybody spoke. So I was the youngest. I probably spoke first. And I said, I can't believe I'm up here at this table. At the front table with all these great coaches. It's amazing how many great coaches there are here. And my dad, being the oldest, he was the last guy to give his little speech before they announced the winner. And he said, well, the first thing I want to say is, Terry, there's one less great coach up here than you think. And I said, well, thanks for ripping me with that one, you know. But that's kind of the fun that we had. But interesting, I really do enjoy talking to Jim Donnan and some of the because he's been through so much of the football and success, and it's obvious that he still covers the game, and it's really funny that I was because I've gotten to the point now, and I think you and I have talked about it, where you don't just pick who's going to win anymore. You got to pick how much, and that's not easy to pick, you know. Well, I've decided that 60%, if I could just get 60% of my games right against the line, against the spread, I'm way above average, you know, when I do that. And so that's kind of where I am now.
and circling back to something you said earlier, it talked about, it's hard to learn how to be a head coach. You know what you want to do. And that's one thing, when an assistant coach gets hired, and it's been, guys have been successful. Look at Kirby. I mean, he was an assistant coach. But it also takes a little bit. I remember when we were at Florida, and overall, if you look at our winning percentage, we ended up pretty well. We just followed the wrong guy. We just followed Spurs. But Ron was learning how to be a head coach, and so it's different when you make those mistakes at Salem versus making them at Florida.
Absolutely. I've always said that the great thing about coaching at Salem and in Sanford before I coached at Auburn was I made mistakes when nobody was watching. It's not like they may not fire you. It's just that you're not they don't critique it in the newspaper or on, of course, we didn't have social media during the 80s. And there was no internet until maybe late 80s, or at least no social media, till the 90s, And so it wasn't something where you got critiqued like you are now. Every mistake you make, everything you do. It's just like did you watch the Missouri game when Missouri lost to Virginia? I don't know if you got a chance to watch that. But Ahmad Hardy is the leading rusher in the SEC, a 1,560 yards. He's now at 1,600 yards. He's the all-time rushing leader in Missouri, was the number one running back in the conference as far as yards are concerned. They had a 4th and 2 to win the game with about 25 seconds left, and the quarterback and the head coach didn't have him in. He was out. He wasn't even in. He's on the sideline. He's pacing. He's bad, and he's arguing. He's not arguing with him. He's having a discussion with the head coach. Well, they run a power with the quarterback, and the quarterback gets about 1.5 yards, but doesn't know to switch his arm to the inside arm. They had ball and reach it across. He just kind of ran out of bounds, and he's a freshman, and didn't get it. And everybody's wondering, well, why didn't you give the ball to the best running back in the conference? But everybody's second guessing because everybody's watching the games and everybody is second guessing. Now their quarterback has been ultra successful, and I'm sure he had a reason. But I didn't understand why he didn't give that guy the ball a bunch more in that game.
He didn't have Trickett on the side
yelling at him. Run the damn ball. Now I will say this: the freshman quarterback that did run it is a true freshman, who replaced their starter who tore his ankle or tore his knee up, and then he opted out. And so Zoller has, I think it's Matt Zoller. He's a true freshman, but he started about 7 games now. But he couldn't hit the side of a barn. I mean, I felt like they would run well enough and win the game. You have to throw it some. And he could not hit the side of a barn. And I think they ended up with 100 yards of passing, but he got half of that on the very last drive. And you can't run it every down. You can't run it every down. And they were forced to run it almost every down. And Virginia did just enough. They mixed the running. Virginia was like 60% on 3rd downs. And Virginia would run, and dink a pass, and they'd go for it on 4th down and make it. And they just kept the ball the whole time,
Tony Elliott, deserve, for those who don't, the head coach at Virginia deserves a ton of credit. I mean, they kind of peed down their leg against Duke, but he's to win 11 games at Virginia.
First time ever at Virginia to have 11 games, 122 years of football. First time ever for the team to win 11. And one, I want to say it was 3 overtime games, and it might have been 4 counting the no, he won that game without going to overtime. So he won 3 of his losses. He won 3 games in overtime, and then lost the conference championship, and I want to say lost to NC State or Wake Forest, somebody that, during the season. He lost a game, but anyway, that was a great win for Virginia, a great season. I'm pretty sure he was the coach of the year in the conference. I don't think probably he gets enough credit to be a coach of the year, but I'm pretty sure he
had to be. I mean,
he had to be. He had to have gotten that award, for the incredible job that he did. And I was with at Clemson for 2 years, 2019, 2020. I was there as an analyst and did a lot of work with Tony on offense. And then I did crossover work for Venables on defense. And he's just a class guy. And, people wonder what's happening at Clemson that's a little bit off. Well, I think obviously everybody's saying, is Dabo paying enough attention to the portal? Is he doing enough in the new trend of recruiting? And I'm sure that's an issue that even Dabo says that he is changing his thinking on that. But he also lost Tony Elliott as the offensive coordinator and Brent Venables as the defensive coordinator, and they were two of the best.
That's right.
And when you lose those two coaches, plus you lose the thing changes from recruiting high school kids and a culture and developing them and the play calling, because Tony brought great running attack to the offense, and then they were able to get the best high school quarterbacks in the country and develop them, and now people are, if they don't get them, they buy them, and that's what. And I think that's what he's got to do at Clemson. So anyway, that's an interesting part there. But anyway,
and talking about the portal before we go, Rick Trickett was in the portal.
Yes,
and landed at West Virginia. And last I heard, I believe. Now, how'd you like to be on the staff with Rich Rodriguez and 3 Tricketts?
Well, I've been on the staff with 2 of them, but not at the same time, with Trick and Rich Rodriguez, and you can't. It'd be hard to take 2 of them at the same time, much less 3.
I think Travis is up there
Travis.
as the senior offensive assistant, and Rick. And
Rick just went there. Sounds like that's a done deal. Well, he does a great job, and Travis does a great job, and Rodriguez does a great job. But they are. It's hard to have. I used to say I need a quiet guy, a good cop, bad cop. You need a quiet coach and a screamer. Well, you got some screamers. You got some guys that get on them.
Well, I think he's hiring
hard.
Chance. I think he's hiring. Chance Trickett was a scout with the Rams, and I believe he's going to West Virginia. I may be breaking some news I'm not supposed to. But I think he's going as the director of scouting or something like that at West Virginia. So you'll have
all tricks. We know what that's probably how he got. When I got Rich Rodriguez to come coach for me, it was it was a package deal. I got his son was a quarterback at Arizona, so I gave his son a scholarship to lead our team. So it was a package deal. And I would think he tried to get Trickett when he went up there. And I think Trickett wanted to stay a coach with his son. Or I think that's what he at Jacksonville.
Travis was at West Virginia, and Clint was at Jacksonville State. But Trick always told me, he said, and I'll leave out the expletives, but he said that I'm not coaching anybody that makes more money than I do. And I was sitting with him last night, and I said, I guess you changed your mind. He said, I'm making more money than I've ever made.
It's a tough time to give up the coaching profession, and I don't know if that had anything to do with it with Will Muschamp going back in too. But they're making more money than they've made. I've been blessed because I had such a great run early in life. Then I had a great 10-year run with ABC New York, and I spent 15 years coaching exactly where I wanted to coach because I love coaching. At schools that weren't paying top dollar. But you don't always repeat what you went through beforehand. But anyway, great show today. Great time to be with Jim Donnan. We kind of sometimes this time of year we'll try to be on next Monday, but we may be today. Well, today's not. Today is Monday. I get so confused. I think of Christmas as being Sunday. Every time I have a Christmas, I think that must be Sunday, but it's not. It was Thursday or whatever. But anyway. We'll be on next week, but we do want to give our shout out and our thanks to Tom Haley and the Haley Family Foundation, who sponsor this show and allow us to come back and have great guests on our show, have some great topics, and hopefully have some interesting comments to make that are interesting to our Auburn fans. So anyway, I appreciate that.
Yeah, and thanks to everyone for listening. And click like and subscribe below. It keeps us in your feed, helps support our work. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
All right. Thank you now.
For more than 100 years, the Haley Red Family Foundation has proudly supported Auburn University scholarships, investing in students' dreams and brighter futures. For over 25 years, we've also stood beside the Sheriff's Girls Ranch, helping young women find hope and opportunity. The Haley Red Family Foundation, building generations of success.